The week before Christmas, my granddaughter said, "Grandma, I heard Mom say you won't be here for Christmas this year." Thought she was joking. That night, I came home early and heard a strange noise coming from my room. I panicked when I realized what it was. Don't forget to subscribe to Granny's Voice and comment where you're watching from. The lakeside cabin had been my happy place for 38 years. Every corner held a memory. Every room told a story. At 70, I had built a life here that nobody could take away from me. Or so I thought. The cold December air hit my face as I sat by the fireplace that Monday night, making cookies for Christmas, which was just 1 week away. My name is Margaret Walsh, and I've lived a simple but good life. I raised 2 sons in this cabin after my husband Robert passed away 12 years ago. My son Brian moved back 1 year ago with his wife Sandra and their 7-year-old daughter Emma. They said they needed help getting their life together. A short stay until things got better. The small house next door had become their home, though Sandra spent most days in my kitchen, looking through my papers, asking about my bank accounts, telling me I needed to be more careful with my money. "You're not young anymore, Margaret," she'd say with a sweet smile. "We just want to keep you protected." Protected. That word started to feel strange to me. That afternoon, little Emma had come into my craft room where I was painting. She sat on the floor, her tiny face looking worried in the afternoon light. "Grandma," she said in a small voice. "I heard Mom talking. She said you won't be here for Christmas this year." I laughed, thinking she mixed up some words. "Of course I'll be here, sweetheart. This is my home. Where would I be?" But Emma didn't smile. Her blue eyes looked scared. "That's what I said too," she whispered. "But Mom told Daddy, 1 more week until Christmas, and then Margaret will be somewhere else." The words made me feel cold inside. "You must have heard wrong, honey." She shook her head fast. "No, Grandma. I heard exactly what she said. She said soon you'll be gone from here." I pushed the thought away like you do when something feels wrong. But now, sitting alone in my cabin as the sun went down, those words came back. Children tell the truth about what they hear. They might not understand, but they don't make things up. I was supposed to eat dinner with Brian and Sandra at 6:30. They'd asked me to come over. Said I needed to relax more, stop worrying about everything. But something in my stomach told me to pay attention. That feeling mothers get when danger is close. At 6 o'clock, I put on my coat and told them I was going to the store for last-minute Christmas shopping. I saw Sandra's face through the window, her eyes showing something I couldn't quite name. Was it fear? Or happiness? I drove exactly 2 miles away, parked at the small store and waited. At 6:20, I turned my car around and came back home, turning off my headlights as I got close. The cabin sat mostly dark, but there was a light on in my bedroom window. My bedroom, the place I said I wouldn't be all evening. My heart beat fast as I opened the back door. The one that was always quiet because I fixed it last summer. The house made no sound except for noises coming from upstairs. Footsteps, things being moved, the sound of drawers opening. Someone was going through my things. I stood near the stairs, my hand shaking, every part of me wanting to yell out and stop this craziness. But something made me stay quiet. Emma's words, the way Sandra had been looking at me lately. That cold look when she thought I wasn't watching. The footsteps moved from my dresser to my closet. I heard hangers moving, boxes being pulled out. They were looking for something important. I walked up the stairs very carefully, skipping the steps that made noise. The door to my bedroom was open just a little bit. Through the crack, I could see Brian's tall body as he searched through my boxes on the high shelf. Sandra stood by my dresser. My jewelry box was open, but she wasn't looking at jewelry. She was reading something. A small green notebook I kept hidden. The one where I wrote down all my important information. Bank numbers, passwords, everything. "It has to be somewhere here," Sandra said in an angry whisper. "Margaret said she keeps important papers in a metal box, but I've looked everywhere 3 times. Maybe she put it in the bank," Brian said, his voice shaking. "We don't have time for maybe. Dr. Wilson said the appointment is on Friday. Once we show the judge she can't think straight, we can take control of everything." But if she finds out and hides the house papers or changes her will? My chest felt tight. Can't think straight. Take control. Your brother already agreed to help us, Sandra asked. Timothy will do whatever I tell him. He lives far away and never calls. He thinks Mom's memory is going bad. Brian's laugh sounded mean. A few phone calls, some stories about her forgetting to lock doors, leaving water running. It's easy to make someone look confused. I held on to the wall. None of it was true. My mind worked better now than it did 20 years ago. But I understood what was happening. They were building lies to make everyone think I couldn't take care of myself. And once they had control, they'd have everything. The cabin, my money, my whole life. What about the Christmas plan? Brian asked. Do you really think we can move her out by then? Dr. Wilson runs that special home in Riverside. He said he can get her in fast if we have the papers from court. Margaret will be living there before New Year's Day. Sandra closed my notebook with a snap. She'll be safe there, Brian. People will watch her all the time. It's what she needs. The words sounded fake and sweet. I knew that voice. The same one she used when telling me to let them live next door. When asking me to add her name to my bank account just in case. When saying I was too old to drive in the rain or remember my pills. What about Emma? Brian's voice got quiet. She keeps asking questions. Emma is 7. She'll get used to it. Sandra walked to the window, looking out at the dark trees. This cabin is worth at least $1.5 million. We could sell it for maybe $500,000. Then we'll finally be able to. A floorboard made a noise under my foot. The talking stopped like someone cut it with scissors. Sandra's head turned toward the door fast. Did you hear something? I pressed myself against the wall. My heart racing like crazy. Move, my brain screamed. But where? Down the stairs, and they'd hear me. My bedroom was the only room on this side with a lock. Maybe just the house making sounds, Brian said. But his steps came toward the door. I made a fast choice. I walked straight into my bedroom, turning on the big light with shaking hands. Oh, I said, acting surprised. I didn't know you were up here. I thought we were eating dinner at 6:30. The shock on their faces would have been funny if my whole world wasn't falling apart. Sandra fixed her face first. That fake smile sliding on like a mask. Margaret, we thought you went shopping. I forgot my purse, I said, walking past them to my dresser. My jewelry box still lay open, my notebook showing under some scarves. I picked up my purse from where I left it on purpose. I'm just so forgetful these days. I watched Sandra's eyes get sharp when I said forgetful. Are you feeling okay? She asked, moving closer. You look tired. Just old, dear. I smiled at her, at Brian, at these two people who were planning to steal my life. You know how it is when you get to be my age. Yes, Sandra said softly, and something in her face scared me. I know exactly how it is, Margaret. That's why we need to have a serious talk. Why don't we go downstairs? Brian made dinner. As we walked down the stairs, me going first, feeling their eyes on my back, I understood something terrible. This wasn't just about money or property. They'd been planning this for a long time, maybe months. The easy move next door, being around me all the time, the small comments that made me doubt myself. And in 4 days, a doctor I never met was going to test me. In the kitchen, as Sandra set the table and Brian served the food, I pretended. The slightly confused old woman who needed help, who needed someone to tell her what to do. But my mind was racing behind the smile. They'd made one big mistake. They thought because I was 70 I was weak. They'd forgotten that I ran this cabin alone for 12 years after Robert died. That I raised 2 sons through hard times and money problems. That I'd lived through pain and sadness before. They'd forgotten that being old doesn't make you stupid. Makes you smarter. As we sat down to eat, Sandra reached over and touched my hand. We love you, Margaret. We just want the best for you. I know, I said quietly. I know exactly what you want. Her smile shook for just a second, and in that second I started making my own plan. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed, the same bed they'd been searching hours before, and stared at the ceiling, my mind working like someone playing chess. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I got up and went to my office, the small room next to the kitchen that used to be Robert's workspace. The file box held 30 years of papers. Birth papers, tax forms, insurance papers. And there in the back, under a pile of old car papers, was what I needed. The original paper showing I owned the cabin, along with my will. Both signed by witnesses. I'd made that will 2 years ago with my lawyer, David Preston, a man I'd trusted for 25 years. Or I thought I trusted him. At 7 o'clock Tuesday morning I called his office. His helper, a young woman named Kelly, answered right away. David Preston's office. How can I help you? Kelly, this is Margaret Walsh. I need to talk with David today. It's really important. Oh, Mrs. Walsh, I'm so sorry. But Mr. Preston is totally full this week with Christmas coming and all. This is about my will and my cabin papers. I need to check some things. Another pause, longer this time. Let me ask Mr. Preston. Can you wait? The waiting music played for almost 4 minutes. When Kelly came back, her voice sounded different. Colder, more careful. Mrs. Walsh, Mr. Preston asked me to tell you that he looked at your papers recently with your daughter-in-law Sandra. And everything looks good. There's really no need for. He talked about my private papers with Sandra. My voice came out sharp. Without asking me first. Well, I believe Sandra was worried about your thinking and hung up. My hands were shaking. They'd gotten to my lawyer, or Sandra had somehow. I thought back to 2 months ago when she'd driven me to a doctor visit. How she'd made me stop at David's office just to say hello. How she'd sent me down to the coffee shop to get drinks while she talked with David about his family. She'd been setting things up, planting ideas about my mind going bad. I pulled out the phone book and started calling other lawyers in town. The first one was busy until February. The second said the same thing. The third, a woman named Lisa Chen, said she could see me that afternoon at 1 o'clock. Just a meeting, she'd said. No promises until I hear what's going on. At noon, Sandra came to my kitchen door without knocking. She did that now, walked into my home like she already owned it. Margaret, I brought lunch. She held up a bag from the sandwich shop in town. Turkey sandwich, your favorite. I smiled and thanked her, watching as she took out the sandwich, chips, and a pickle. She moved through my kitchen like it was hers, knowing where everything was. I thought we could eat together, she said, sitting in the chair across from me. We need to talk about something important. Here it comes, I thought. The setup. The worried family member act. Your friend Alice called this morning. Sandra opened her sandwich slowly. She's worried about you. Said you missed your book club last week. And when she called to check, you didn't remember agreeing to meet. That's not true. I never said I'd go. Alice has been in Texas since November visiting her daughter. Are you sure, Margaret? Because she seemed very certain. Alice sends me letters from Dallas. Got one 2 days ago. I stood and got it from my board on the wall, holding it up. She won't be back until January 12th. The quiet between us felt heavy and strange. Maybe I heard wrong, Sandra said finally. I'm just worried about you. We all are. Who is we all? Your family. People who care about you. She reached across the table, putting her hand on mine. Margaret, I need to tell you something. Dr. Wilson, you remember him? He took care of your neighbor Betty. He's agreed to do a health check. Just normal stuff. It would really help me feel better. I don't need a health check. I'm perfectly fine. But that's the thing, Margaret. Sometimes people don't know when they're starting to have problems. Her voice was sweet like honey. It's not about being sick or anything scary. It's just about making sure you're safe, that you're taking your medicine right, handling your money correctly. I handle everything just fine. Do you? She pulled out her phone, scrolling to something. Because the medicine store called yesterday. You forgot to pick up your heart pills. That's the 3rd time this month. My heart pills. I took them every morning with breakfast. And I had a full bottle in my bathroom upstairs. I got more 2 weeks ago. Let me see that, I said. She turned the phone toward me. Sure enough, there was a message from the medicine store. Pills ready for pickup. Walsh. Heart medicine. I already have those pills, I said slowly. In fact, I just took them this morning. Really? Can you show me? We went upstairs together. Sandra's hand near my arm like I might fall. In my bathroom, I opened the medicine box. The orange bottle I'd put there this morning was gone. Margaret, Sandra's voice was soft like talking to a baby. Are you sure you took it today? It was right here. I checked the other shelves, the drawer, the counter. Nothing. Someone took it. Who would take your medicine? The question hung in the air. We both knew she had a key to my house. She'd been in here yesterday searching my bedroom. Maybe you took it downstairs, she said. Or put it somewhere else and forgot. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Margaret. These little memory problems. I didn't forget. But doubt started creeping in, cold and scary. Had I taken it? I remembered filling the cup with water, opening the bottle. But had I really swallowed the pill, or had something interrupted me? The memory felt fuzzy around the edges. Sandra helped me walk back downstairs, her hand strong on my arm. The appointment with Dr. Wilson is Friday at 9 o'clock. Just a talk, that's all. And it would mean so much to me to know you're healthy and safe. After she left, I looked everywhere for that medicine bottle. It wasn't anywhere. Either I'd lost it, which I knew I hadn't, or someone had taken it to make me look forgetful. At 1 o'clock, I drove to Lisa Chen's office in the building downtown. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with smart eyes and a firm handshake. Mrs. Walsh, please sit. Tell me why you're here. I told her everything. The talk I'd heard, the plans for control, the doctor's test, David Preston not helping me. She listened without stopping me, writing notes sometimes. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. Mrs. Walsh, I'm going to be honest with you. What you're telling me happens more than you'd think. Adult children who see aging parents as problems instead of people who deserve respect. Relief washed over me. She believed me. But, she continued, I need to tell you I can't take your case. The relief disappeared. Why not? My company has a rule against taking cases about thinking ability. It's too risky. If your daughter-in-law goes ahead with this plan and you have a lawyer helping you first, it can be used as proof that you were scared or confused for no reason. But I'm not confused. I'm being attacked. Believe you. But the court system is tricky with these things, especially when family members show what looks like real worry. She pulled out a card, wrote something on the back. This is a friend in Riverside. Thomas Green. He works with older people in cases like yours. But Mrs. Walsh, I'm going to tell you something important. The best way to fight this is to do things first. Don't wait for them to file papers. Get your own doctor test from someone not connected to them. Write everything down. And for heaven's sake, change your locks and take away any control Sandra has over your bank. I stared at the card in my hand. Riverside was 3 hours away. The test is Friday. That's 2 days. Then you need to hurry. She stood up, showing our meeting was done. And Mrs. Walsh, be careful. If your daughter-in-law is as smart as you say, she's thought many steps ahead. I drove home as the sun went down. The sky looked purple and gray. The cabin looked peaceful in the fading light. Smoke coming from the chimney of the little house where Sandra and her family were probably eating dinner. My family. My son. The boy I'd held when he cried and helped when he was sick. The little boy who'd brought me flowers and called me the best mom ever. When did he start seeing me as something to control, to get rid of? I parked in the garage instead of my normal spot. Something told me to. As I walked to the house, I saw tire marks in the dirt near the side door. Fresh marks from this afternoon. Someone had been here while I was gone. Inside everything looked normal. But I'd learned to notice small things. A chair moved a little from the table. The rug near my office door wrinkled. The faint smell of men's cologne, Brian's kind, in the air. I went to the file box. The bottom drawer, where I'd left the cabin papers and will this morning, was open a tiny bit. I opened it all the way, my heart dropping. The cabin papers were still there, but my will was missing. I stood in the growing darkness of my office, holding the papers with both hands, and understood everything I was facing. They weren't just planning to have me declared unable to think. They were carefully removing every tool I might use to fight back. My lawyer was working with them. My will was gone. My medicine was being hidden to make me look forgetful. And in 2 days, Dr. Wilson would test me with proof of memory problems and confusion that Sandra had been carefully creating. But they'd made mistakes too. They'd thought I'd be easy to control, confused, simple to trick. They'd forgotten that I'd run a cabin, raised children, survived losing my husband. That I'd talked with banks and sellers and difficult repair people. That I'd learned patience and planning from 30 years of making things work when they were hard. I locked the cabin papers in my bedroom safe, one Sandra hadn't found yet, and sat at my kitchen table with a notebook. At the top of the first page I wrote 3 words. Fight back smart. Then I started making a list of everything I knew about Sandra's life, her marriage, her secrets. If she wanted a battle, she'd get one, but I'd choose how to fight. Outside, snow started falling, soft and quiet. Through the window, I could see lights glowing in the little house next door. I wondered if they were celebrating, thinking they'd already won. They hadn't. The real fight was just starting. Wednesday morning came with freezing rain that covered everything in ice. I'd been awake since 3 o'clock. My notebook now filled with notes, dates, things that didn't make sense in Sandra's stories over the past year. Patterns showed up when you looked close enough. The timing of their money troubles matched when she learned that Robert's life insurance money, the one that would go to her if I died, had grown to almost $400,000. At 6:30, I called Thomas Green's office in Riverside. His helper said he could see me Thursday at 11 o'clock. Very close to Friday's test, but it would have to work. I made the appointment, my hand steady even though fear was swirling in my stomach. Then I did something Sandra wouldn't expect. I called my son Timothy in Florida. Mom, his voice was thick with sleep. It's so early. Something wrong. Timothy, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Has Brian talked to you about my health? Quiet, then carefully he mentioned he was worried. Said you'd been forgetting things, getting mixed up. What exactly did he tell you? Mom, I don't want to upset you. Timothy Robert Walsh, I am your mother. And I'm asking you a direct question. He breathed out. He said you left the stove on 4 times last month. That you got lost driving to town. That you called him by Uncle Frank's name and didn't remember doing it. He sent me an email asking if I'd be willing to sign some papers supporting a doctor test. My chest felt tight. And what did you say? I said I needed to think about it. Mom, are you okay? Because if you're having trouble, we can help. That's nothing to be embarrassed about. I'm not having trouble. I haven't left the stove on once. I've never gotten lost. And Uncle Frank died 5 years ago. Why would I call anyone by his name? My voice got louder even though I tried to stay calm. Timothy, your brother is lying to you. He's been lying to both of us. That's a serious thing to say. I know it is, and I can prove it. Could I? I had my own notes, but no hard proof yet. I need you to not sign anything. Promise me. Another long pause. Mom, I'll fly out there. After Christmas, we'll sit down and talk about this together as a family. After Christmas might be too late. What does that mean? Couldn't explain. Not on the phone. Not when I didn't know if he'd believe me. Just promise me you won't sign anything without talking to me first. Please. Promise. But Mom, if Brian is really worried about you, maybe there's a middle way. Maybe you do need some extra help. I need my children to trust that I know my own mind. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table feeling the weight of his doubt. Sandra had poisoned that well too. Even Timothy, who'd always been the kind one, the fair one, was half convinced I was losing my mind. At 8 o'clock, Emma knocked on my kitchen door. She was alone, wearing her pink winter coat and snow boots. Grandma, can I come in? Course, sweetheart. I opened the door, looking toward the little house. No sign of Sandra or Brian. Does your mother know you're here? She's talking on the phone. She talks on the phone all the time now. Emma climbed onto a kitchen chair, her small face serious. Grandma, I need to tell you something. What is it, honey? I heard Mom and Dad talking again last night. They said the doctor is coming Friday, and after that you're going to go live somewhere else. Place where other old people live. Her eyes filled with tears. But I don't want you to go. This is your home. I pulled her into a hug, my own eyes burning. I'm not going anywhere, Emma. Promise. But Mom said your mother is wrong. I pulled back, looking at her face. Emma, I need you to be very brave. Can you remember exactly what they said? Every single word. She nodded, looking serious. Mom said Friday we'll have the test results. Dr. Wilson promised he'd say she can't think right. Then we file the emergency control papers on Monday. And Dad said, what if she fights it? And Mom laughed and said, with what? David already has copies of everything. She doesn't have a lawyer, doesn't have her will. And by Monday she won't even have her medicine records. The words fell like rocks. Dr. Wilson had already promised to say I couldn't think right before even meeting me. This wasn't a test. It was a decision already made. What's control papers? Emma asked. It's when a court says someone can't take care of themselves anymore. So someone else has to make their choices for them. But you take care of yourself fine. You take care of all of us. She held my hand tight. Grandma, Mom did something with your pills. I saw her take a bottle from your bathroom yesterday. Did you tell her you saw? Well, I was hiding in the hall closet. I hide there sometimes when they argue. Her voice got very quiet. They argue about money a lot. Dad says they owe people. And Mom says once they have the cabin, they can pay everyone back. The pieces fit together. Not just wanting money. They were desperate. They owed money, probably serious money, to serious people. And my cabin was their escape. Emma, this is very important. Has anyone else been coming to the house? People your parents meet with. She thought for a moment. There's a man in a suit who comes at night sometimes. Mom calls him Dr. Wilson. And there was another man last week. Scary man. He made Dad nervous. Scary how? He had drawings on his neck, and he talked really quiet but in a mean way. After he left, Dad was shaking. A debt collector or worse. I thought about Brian. Always smooth talking, always with a new plan, always about to make big money that never quite happened. What had he gotten them into? The kitchen door opened without warning. Sandra stood there, her face angry but hiding it behind a smile. Emma, I've been looking everywhere for you. Come on, we need to get you to school. It's snowing too hard, I said. The roads are dangerous. I'll decide what's safe for my daughter. Sandra's voice was like ice. She looked at Emma. What have you been talking about? Nothing, Emma said quickly. Just Christmas presents. Go wait in the car. After Emma ran out, Sandra turned to me. I'd appreciate it if you didn't put ideas in my daughter's head. She's too young to understand what's happening with your health. Nothing is happening with my health. Margaret, not accepting reality is part of the sickness. Dr. Wilson explained it to me. The patient is often the last one to see their own problems. She moved closer, and I saw something new in her eyes. Not just planning, but a kind of desperate hardness. The test on Friday is for your own good. You'll understand that later. And if I say no, then we'll have to go ahead with an emergency request, which would be harder on everyone, especially you. She fixed her purse strap. It doesn't have to be a fight. You can go willingly to Pinewood Manor. It's a beautiful place. Really nice. And you'll be safe there. Cared for. Locked up, you mean? Her mask slipped for just a second. That's what it takes. After she left, I stood at the window watching the ice build up on the trees. Pinewood Manor. Heard of it? A memory care place on the edge of Riverside. Locked doors, patients given lots of medicine. People went in and rarely came out. I had less than 48 hours. I spent the rest of Wednesday collecting proof. I took pictures of my medicine bottles with today's newspaper next to them, showing I had everything I was supposed to have. I wrote out a detailed timeline of Sandra's claims versus what really happened. I got my bank papers and marked the money taken out without permission. Small amounts but regular. That started 5 months ago when Sandra insisted on being added to my account just for emergencies. Then I did something that made my hands shake. I set up a small recording machine in my living room. Robert had used them years ago for work meetings. Sound activated. I'd found it in his office and got it working at the electronics store in town, telling the young worker I wanted to record my own thoughts. He showed me how it worked. Simple, hidden. Perfect. At 3 o'clock, Brian knocked on my door. Alone. Margaret, can we talk? I let him in, my heart pounding. The recorder was running. He sat at my kitchen table, looking uncomfortable in a way I'd never seen before. I need to be honest with you. Sandra doesn't know I'm here. Go ahead. This thing on Friday, I don't feel good about it. Sandra's been talking to Dr. Wilson for weeks, and some of what she's told him isn't exactly true. He ran his hand through his hair. But we're in a really bad situation. I made some deals that didn't work out, and we owe some people who aren't patient about getting paid. How much? $200,000. I kept my face calm, though the number shocked me. To who? A building company. They gave me money for a house deal that fell through. Now they want their money back with extra on top. He looked at me with something like begging. If we could borrow against the cabin, just for a little while. You want me to risk my home to cover your mistakes. Not risk, just a loan. We pay you back. And if you don't, if these people come after the property. He was quiet. Brian, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I know what Sandra is planning. I know about the control request, the test that's already decided, all of it. And I'm telling you right now, I will fight. I will fight with everything I have. His face went pale. She said you wouldn't understand. That you couldn't think clearly anymore. Do I sound unclear to you right now? He stared at me, and I saw the moment his certainty broke. Well, no, you don't. Then help me. Tell me everything. Who is Dr. Wilson really? What did Sandra promise him? Can't. But his voice shook. Margaret, these people we owe money to, they're not people you say no to. If we don't pay them back by New Year's, they've made it very clear what will happen. Sandra is desperate. I'm desperate. We need the cabin to survive. So you destroy me to save yourselves. He stood up fast. Sorry. I shouldn't have come. He moved toward the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, I don't think you're losing your mind. And I don't think you should trust Dr. Wilson. He's not what Sandra says he is. What do you mean? But he was already gone. The door closing softly behind him. I played back the recording. Every word crystal clear. Brian's admission about the debts. His doubt about Sandra's claims. His warning about Wilson. It wasn't enough to stop them, but it was a start. That night I couldn't sleep again. At 11 o'clock I heard sounds outside. Footsteps crunching on ice. Voices low and urgent. I moved to my bedroom window and looked down at the driveway. A black truck was parked near the little house. Two men stood with Brian in the porch light. Even from far away, I could see Brian's body language. Fear. Giving in. One of the men handed him something. Papers. Brian shook his head, arguing. The man grabbed his shirt collar. Sandra appeared in the doorway, pulling the man back. They talked for several minutes, Sandra's hands moving, trying to calm things down. Finally, the men got back in their truck and drove away, red lights disappearing into the snowy darkness. I understood then. This wasn't just about greed. Sandra and Brian were drowning, and they decided to use me as their life preserver. Even if it meant pushing me under to save themselves. But I'd survived worse than scheming family and crooked doctors. I'd survived sadness and loss and decades of hard winters. I could survive this too. In my nightstand drawer, I found Robert's old address book. There, under W, was the name I needed. Dr. Wilson's partner, James Carter, a real doctor, an honest one, who'd treated Robert for years before he died. I'd call him first thing in the morning. Get my own test. Build my defense. Because Sandra had made one big error in her planning. She'd forgotten that a trapped animal fights hardest. And I wasn't done fighting yet. Thursday morning, I woke to find my car wouldn't start. The battery was dead or had been messed with. When I checked under the hood, I saw the wire had been loosened just enough to break the connection. Someone had been in my garage during the night. My appointment with Thomas Green in Riverside was at 11 o'clock. Without my car, I was stuck. Called the local taxi. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Walsh," the worker said. "Our only car is out on a hospital trip. Won't be back until 2 o'clock. Too late." I tried the bus schedule. The next one to Riverside left at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Also too late. Sandra had thought of everything. I stood in my kitchen, the clock moving toward 7 o'clock, my chance getting smaller with each passing minute. Then I remembered my neighbor Helen Martinez lived half a mile down the road. We'd been friends for 18 years. Need help. I bundled into my coat and started walking. The road was slippery with yesterday's ice. The morning air sharp enough to hurt my lungs. I was 70 years old, walking through freezing weather because my own family had broken my car. The craziness of it would have been funny if it weren't so scary. Helen answered on the second knock, her face showing worry. Margaret, good heavens, what are you doing out in this weather? I need help. Big favor. Inside her warm kitchen over hot chocolate, I told her everything. Not the short version, not the nice story. The whole truth. Helen listened, her face changing from shock to anger to determination. That woman, she said when I finished. I always thought there was something calculating about Sandra, even when she first moved here. She'd smile at you while figuring out what she could get. She grabbed her car keys. Riverside, you said. Let's go. We made it to Thomas Green's office with 8 minutes to spare. He was a strong-looking man in his 50s with kind eyes and a serious manner. I showed him everything. My notes, the timeline, Brian's recorded confession, the bank papers showing Sandra's withdrawals. He listened to the full recording twice, writing notes. When it finished, he sat back in his chair. Mrs. Walsh, I'm going to be straight with you. This is serious. Your daughter-in-law has built a story that on the surface looks real. A worried family member concerned about an aging person's declining ability. Without solid proof that she's lying, a judge might believe her. But I have Brian's confession, which was recorded without him knowing he was being recorded. Oregon law says both people have to agree to be recorded. That recording can't be used in court. He held up his hand as I started to argue. However, it tells us what we're dealing with and it gives us power. What kind of power? Brian admitted they owe money to dangerous people. He admitted the test is already decided. He admitted you seem perfectly able to think. Thomas leaned forward. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to file an emergency request this afternoon to block any control petition. I'll argue that there's proof of money stealing and that any test should be done by a court-appointed doctor, not Dr. Wilson. Will it work? It'll slow them down, buy us time. But Mrs. Walsh, I need you to understand something. The legal system moves slowly. Even with an emergency request, we're looking at hearings, tests, investigations. If Sandra and Brian are as desperate as you say, they might do something drastic before we can get court protection in place. The weight of his words settled over me like a heavy blanket. What should I do? Write everything down. Don't be alone with them. And whatever you do, don't go to that test tomorrow. If Wilson has already decided his findings, anything you say or do will be twisted to support their story. If I don't go, won't that make me look like I don't want to cooperate? Let me worry about that. I'll tell Wilson's office that you're refusing the test on advice of legal help, and that you're requesting an independent court-appointed tester. He handed me his card. Call me if anything happens, day or night. And Mrs. Walsh, change your locks today. Get security cameras if you can. These situations can get bad quickly. Helen drove me to a hardware store where I bought new locks and a simple doorbell camera that connected to my phone. Then she drove me home, promising to check on me every few hours. You're not alone in this, she said, squeezing my hand. Whatever you need. Back at the cabin, I found Sandra waiting on my front porch. Her face looked like ice. Where were you? I had an appointment. What kind of appointment? You didn't mention any appointment. I don't need to tell you my schedule, Sandra. I'm still able to manage my own life. Her eyes got narrow. Your car wouldn't start this morning. I was worried. I thought something bad had happened to you. How did you know my car wouldn't start? Brian checked on it this morning. He noticed the battery problem. She smiled, but it didn't touch her eyes. We were about to call a repair person for you. How thoughtful. Margaret, I need to talk to you about tomorrow. Tess, I'm not going. The smile disappeared. What do you mean you're not going? Exactly what I said. I've hired legal help. Thomas Green. He's filing papers on my behalf, and he's told me not to participate in any test until we have a court-appointed independent tester. Sandra's face went through several feelings in fast motion. Shock, fury, calculation. You hired a lawyer. Margaret, that's paranoid behavior. That's exactly the kind of thing that shows you're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking very clearly. Clearly enough to know that Dr. Wilson has already decided his findings before meeting me. Clearly enough to know you've been systematically building a false case against me. Clearly enough to know you and Brian owe $200,000 to some very dangerous people. Her face went white. Brian told you. Brian's conscience got the better of him. You don't understand the situation. I understand perfectly. You're drowning in debt, and you decided to throw me overboard to save yourselves. I pushed past her to my front door. Now please get off my property. Your property. Her voice turned high and angry. I lived in this cabin as a child. I have just as much right to be here as you do. Actually, you don't. The papers are in my name alone. Always have been. And if you don't leave right now, I'll call the police. She stared at me, breathing hard. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. Brian, come to the main cabin now. She looked at me while she waited. You're making a mistake, Margaret. Big one. Brian arrived 2 minutes later. His face tired and worn. He wouldn't look at me. Tell her, Sandra said to him. Tell her what happens if we don't pay those people back. Sandra, don't. Tell her. Brian's shoulders dropped. They'll hurt us. They've already made threats. The guy who came by last night said if we don't have the money by New Year's, they'll start with Emma. My blood went cold. They threatened your daughter. They threatened all of us, Sandra snapped. This isn't just about money anymore. Those people don't care about legal stuff or what's fair. They want their money back, and they will hurt our family if we don't pay. The cabin is the only thing we can use quickly enough. By having me declared unable to think and stealing my property. By saving all of our lives. Her voice cracked. You don't understand what these people can do. Brian's partner disappeared last month. Just vanished. They found his car in the lake. This is real, Margaret. This is life and death. I looked at them, my son and his wife, both scared, both desperate. Part of me wanted to comfort them, to fix this like I'd fixed their problems when they were young. But I'd learned something important over the past few days. Their crisis didn't require me to destroy myself. Then you need to go to the police. The police can't help us. Brian said quietly. These people have connections. They know people in the department. Going to the cops would only make things worse. What about bankruptcy, debt help? We tried. No real lender will help us now. Sandra moved closer. Margaret, please. If you would just sign over control, let us take out a loan on the cabin. Just enough to pay these people back. We could figure everything else out later. And if you can't make the payments on the loan, if you fail, silence, then I lose the cabin. The home I've lived in for 38 years. The place Robert and I built together. I shook my head. Well, I won't do it. Then you're sentencing your granddaughter to. Sandra couldn't finish the sentence. I'm not sentencing anyone to anything. You and Brian made choices that led you here. Bad choices, apparently. But those are your consequences to face, not mine. How can you be so selfish? Sandra's voice was pure poison now. We are your family. Your own son is begging you for help, and you'd rather hold on to some property than save your grandchild. Don't you dare put this on me. You created this situation. You fix it. Brian grabbed Sandra's arm. Come on. This isn't working. As they walked to the door, Sandra turned back. The test is still happening tomorrow, with or without you. Dr. Wilson will give his findings based on the proof we've already given him. And Margaret, when the judge signs that control order, you won't have any choice about what happens to the cabin or to you. After they left, I put in the new locks with shaking hands. Then I set up the doorbell camera, connecting it to my phone the way the store worker had shown me. The little red light blinked, recording everything in front of my door. I called Thomas Green and told him about the threats, the debt collectors, everything. This changes things, he said. If they're desperate enough, They might try to force you out before we can get court protection. Mrs. Walsh, is there somewhere safe you can stay? Family, friends. I'm not leaving my home. Then I'm telling you to contact the police. File a report about the threats, the broken car, everything. I called the police department. An officer named Jackson took my statement over the phone. His tone was doubtful but professional. We can send someone out to take a full report, he said. But Mrs. Walsh, family fights are complicated. Unless there's been physical violence or direct threats. They broke my car. They're planning to have me illegally locked up. Isn't that enough? I'll make a note of your concerns. We'll increase patrols in your area. After I hung up, I understood that I was basically alone in this. The legal system was too slow. The police were too careful. My own son was states away and half convinced I was losing my mind. At 5 o'clock, my doorbell camera sent an alert to my phone. I opened the app and watched as a man in a dark suit came to my front door. Not Brian, not anyone I knew. He tried the handle, found it locked, then walked around the side of the cabin. Called 911. There's a stranger on my property trying to get in. By the time the police officer arrived 18 minutes later, the man was gone. But I had him on camera trying my doors, looking in windows, testing the lock on the garage. Officer Jackson looked at the video on my phone. Do you know this man? No, but I think he's connected to the people my son and daughter-in-law owe money to. I'll file a report. We'll keep a closer watch on your place tonight. He looked at me with something like pity. Mrs. Walsh, I'm going to be honest with you. If these people are as dangerous as you say, you should seriously think about staying somewhere else for a few days. This is my home. Yes, ma'am. But it's not worth dying for. After he left, I sat in my dark living room, watching the camera feed on my phone. The cabin stretched out peaceful and still under the porch light. 38 years I'd lived here. Raised children here. Scattered Robert's ashes in the garden here. I'd be darned if I'd let Sandra and her mess drive me out. At 11 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a text message from a number I didn't know. Your daughter-in-law can't protect you. Neither can your lawyer. Sign over the property or face what comes next. You have until Saturday morning. I read it 3 times. My hands steady despite the fear coiling in my stomach. They calculated wrong again. They thought an old woman would be scared into giving up. They'd forgotten that I'd faced down snowstorms and dry summers, money crashes and failed crops, loneliness and grief. That I'd learned to be tough in a way that had nothing to do with physical strength and everything to do with refusing to break. I texted back one word. Well. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. If they wanted a war, they'd get one. Friday morning came cold and bright. I woke at sunrise, having slept surprisingly well despite everything. Maybe it was the clarity that comes when you've made your stand and there's nothing left to do but see it through. My doorbell camera showed no activity overnight, but I knew they were planning something. The test was scheduled for 9 o'clock, and I'd made it clear I wouldn't go. Sandra wouldn't let that stand without a response. At 7 o'clock, Thomas Green called. Mrs. Walsh, I filed the emergency request. The hearing is scheduled for Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock. But I need to warn you. Dr. Wilson submitted his test findings to the court late yesterday afternoon. How could he? He never met with me. He based it on observed behaviors, family testimony, and documented incidents of thinking decline. It's highly irregular and we'll challenge it, but for now, it's in the record. He paused. Margaret, his report says you need immediate placement in a secured facility. He's claiming you're a danger to yourself. Based on what? Based on Sandra's documentation. The medicine problems, the supposed confusion, the money mismanagement. And there's something else. She submitted a statement from your son Timothy supporting her concerns. My heart dropped. Timothy signed it yesterday afternoon. Sorry. So Sandra had gotten to him after all. Probably told him some sad story about how I'd become angry and paranoid. How she was just trying to help. Timothy, who lived 3 states away and only saw me twice a year, had chosen to believe his brother over his mother. What do we do now? We fight. I'll be at the hearing Tuesday with our proof. In the meantime, stay safe. And Mrs. Walsh, don't let them make you do anything confrontational. Anything you say or do today could be used against you. After we hung up, I made coffee and looked at my own documentation. Everything was organized, labeled, dated. I had photographs, bank papers, Brian's recording. Not allowed in court but convincing. I had the doorbell video of the stranger. I had Helen as a witness to my ability to think clearly. Should have been enough. But the system was designed to protect vulnerable older people, and Sandra had masterfully positioned herself as the worried family member while painting me as the confused victim. At 8:30, a fancy car pulled up my driveway. Dr. Wilson got out, a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and an expensive suit. Sandra and Brian followed in their own car, parking beside him. I watched through the window as they talked on my front porch. Sandra gestured wildly. Wilson nodded, making notes on a tablet. Brian stood slightly apart, his body language showing discomfort. The doorbell rang. I let it ring 3 times before answering through the speaker on my new camera system. Mrs. Walsh, this is Dr. Wilson. I'm here for your scheduled test. I've declined that test, Dr. Wilson. My lawyer has informed you of this. Mrs. Walsh, I have a court order requiring you to submit to a wellness check. If you refuse, I'll have no choice but to recommend immediate forced commitment. You don't have a court order. You have an appointment I've can-led. Sandra pushed forward. Margaret, please just talk to him for an hour. That's all we're asking. Then we can figure everything else out. The time for figuring things out was before you decided to have me declared unable to think and steal my property. No one is stealing anything. Her voice rose. We're trying to help you, and you're being stubborn and irrational. Mrs. Walsh, Wilson interrupted smoothly. Your daughter-in-law has expressed real concerns about your welfare. The resistant behavior you're showing is often a sign of thinking decline. Patients frequently can't see their own condition. I can't see my condition. Doctor, you've never met me. You submitted a test report yesterday recommending I be locked in a facility, and we've never spoken. That's not medicine. That's wrong. I saw Wilson's face tighten. I based my assessment on extensive documentation provided by your family. Documentation that's made up. My daughter-in-law has been creating fake proof of my supposed decline because she and her husband owe $200,000 to some very dangerous people. This isn't about my health. It's about money desperation. Margaret, that's a paranoid delusion. Is it? Brian, tell Dr. Wilson about the men who threatened Emma. Tell him about your partner whose car ended up in the lake. Brian's face went white. Sandra shot him a warning look. Mrs. Walsh, Wilson said carefully. These detailed conspiracy theories are another symptom we need to address. I really must insist. You can insist all you want. I'm not opening this door. They talked in low voices. Then Sandra pulled out her phone and made a call. 4 minutes later, a police car pulled up. Officer Jackson got out, looking unhappy. Mrs. Walsh, I need you to open the door. On what grounds? Dr. Wilson has requested an emergency welfare check. I'm required to verify you're safe. I understood the trap. If I refused the officer, I'd be showing the exact kind of resistant, paranoid behavior that supported Sandra's story. If I cooperated, I'd be admitting Wilson had authority over me. I'll open the door for you, Officer Jackson, not for them. I unlocked the door but kept the chain on, opening it 5 inches. Jackson looked through the gap. Are you all right, ma'am? I'm fine. As you can see, I'm properly dressed, clear-minded, and managing my home. There's no emergency here. Mrs. Walsh, I need you to let Dr. Wilson do his test. He's already done a test without meeting me and submitted findings to the court. I have legal representation, and my lawyer has advised me not to participate in any further contact with Dr. Wilson until we have a court-appointed independent tester. Jackson shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, I don't want to have to force this. And don't. I'm not a danger to myself or others. I'm simply using my legal right to refuse medical treatment I don't agree to. She's showing clear signs of paranoia, Wilson said. The refusal to cooperate. The accusations against family members. These are textbook signs of thinking problems. Or signs that I know exactly what's happening, and I'm not cooperating with fraud. Margaret, please. Sandra pushed closer to the door. Just let us in. Let's talk about this like a family. We stopped being a family when you started plotting to have me committed. Something in Sandra's face cracked. Then the mask of concern fell away, showing raw fury underneath. Fine. You want to do this the hard way. We'll do it the hard way. She turned to Wilson. File your recommendation. Emergency commitment. She's clearly a danger to herself. Based on what proof? I demanded. Based on the proof I've been collecting for months. Based on Timothy's statement. Based on your own behavior right now. Locking yourself in your cabin, making wild accusations, refusing medical care. Sandra's voice was ice. By Tuesday morning you'll be in Pinewood Manor whether you like it or not. And once you're there, once you're under control, every decision will be mine to make, including what happens to this cabin. Sandra, Brian tried to interrupt, but she turned on him. Don't you dare get cold feet now. We're past the point of backing out. Those people gave us until tomorrow morning. Tomorrow. If we don't have an answer by then. Maybe that's what you deserve, I said quietly. Everyone froze. Maybe I continued, the consequences of your choices should fall on you, not on me. Maybe your daughter should see what kind of people her parents really are. Maybe you need to face what you've done instead of trying to destroy me to save yourselves. Sandra's laugh was bitter. Brave words from someone who's about to lose everything. You think your lawyer can stop this? You think the court will believe you over trained medical professionals and worried family members? She leaned close to the door crack. You're 70 years old. You're alone. And by the time anyone realizes what really happened here, you'll be so medicated you won't remember your own name. It was the threat I'd been waiting for. The clear admission of their intent. And my phone, propped on the hall table, had been recording the entire conversation through its video function. Officer Jackson, I said calmly, I want to file a formal complaint. Dr. Wilson has just admitted to filing a fake medical evaluation. My daughter-in-law has just threatened me with unlawful confinement and forced medication. And I have proof that this entire scheme is motivated by their debt to criminal organizations. Jackson looked between me and Sandra, clearly out of his depth. Mrs. Walsh, these are serious accusations. With serious proof to support them. I have recordings, documentation, witness statements. And now I have your presence here as a witness to these threats. Wilson stepped back, his professional composure slipping. I've done nothing fraudulent. My evaluation was based on fake evidence from a woman whose desperation has made her dangerous. I finally opened the door fully, standing in my doorway, meeting each of their eyes. You made a mistake, Sandra. You underestimated me. You thought because I'm 70 I'd be easy to control. You forgot that I've been handling difficult situations since before you were born. Margaret, I'm not finished. My voice was steel. I know about the debt collectors. I know about Brian's disappeared partner. I know about the threats against Emma. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to withdraw the control petition. Dr. Wilson is going to file a corrected report with the court stating his initial evaluation was too early. And you're going to find another way to solve your money problems. Or what? Sandra's voice dripped poison. Or I go to the FBI. The silence that followed was complete. You're bluffing, Brian said, but his voice shook. Am I? The FBI investigates interstate fraud, elder abuse, and organized crime. You're debt collectors who threaten children and make partners disappear. That's exactly their area. And Dr. Wilson's fake evaluation scheme. Mail fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy. Federal charges. I pulled out a business card one Thomas had given me that morning. This is Special Agent Maria Santos. Thomas contacted her yesterday as a safety measure. She's very interested in cases involving exploitation of elderly victims. It was a calculated bluff built on a foundation of truth. Thomas had contacted a colleague who worked with the FBI on elder abuse cases. Whether Santos was actually involved yet, I didn't know. But they didn't need to know that. Wilson's face had gone gray. I want no part of this. He looked at Sandra. You said this would be straightforward. You didn't mention anything about criminal organizations or federal investigations. She's lying. She's confused. Does she sound confused? Wilson snapped. He turned back to me. Mrs. Walsh, I apologize. I was given incomplete information. I'll be filing a corrected report stating that a proper evaluation cannot be completed without direct examination, and that the early findings were premature. Dr. Wilson, you can't. Sandra started, but he was already walking to his car. Officer Jackson cleared his throat. Mrs. Walsh, I'm going to file a report about this situation. Given the threats that have been made, I'm recommending increased patrols, and I'm going to suggest that protective services conduct their own investigation. Thank you, officer. After he left, it was just me, Sandra, and Brian standing in the cold morning air. My son's wife looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Real hatred. You've destroyed us, she said flatly. You know that, right? Those people don't accept excuses. They don't care about FBI investigations. By tomorrow morning, they'll come for what they're owed. Then I suggest you call the FBI yourself. Witness protection exists for people in your situation. Can't Brian started. You can face the consequences of your choices. But those consequences don't include destroying me. I stepped back toward my door. You have 1 hour to get your belongings out of the little house. Then I want you off my property. This is still part of my home. Sandra said desperately. I grew up here. You can't just. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it as my legs finally began to shake. Through the window, I watched them stand there for several minutes, Sandra arguing with Brian, both of them on their phones. Finally, they walked back to the little house. I called Thomas Green immediately. Done. I have the whole thing recorded. Sandra made clear threats. Wilson admitted his evaluation was based on their information, and Officer Jackson witnessed most of it. Send me the recording right now. I'll file an emergency motion to dismiss the control petition and request a restraining order. He paused. Margaret, you did well. But this isn't over. If what you said about their debt is true, it is. Then they're going to get more desperate before this ends. Be careful. I spent the next hour uploading the recording, emailing it to Thomas, making copies. Then I called Helen and told her everything. Do you want me to come stay with you? She asked immediately. Not yet, but keep your phone close. At noon, a moving truck pulled up to the little house. Sandra and Brian loaded boxes with mechanical movements, Emma watching from the truck's front seat with tears running down her face. I wanted to go to her to comfort her, but I couldn't. Not now. Before they left, Sandra walked to my door one last time. I watched her through the camera. Saw her stand there for a long moment, her hand raised as if to knock. Then she dropped it and walked away. The truck pulled out of the driveway at 1 o'clock. I watched it disappear down the road, taking my son and granddaughter with it. I protected my home, my independence, my rights. So why did victory feel so much like grief? The cabin felt impossibly quiet after they left. I stood at the kitchen window watching the empty little house, its windows dark, the small Christmas wreath Emma had hung on the door swaying in the December wind. The silence should have felt like peace. Instead, it felt like loss. I made tea I didn't drink. I organized papers that didn't need organizing. I did anything to avoid thinking about Emma's tear-stained face in that moving truck. About the way Sandra had stood at my door with her hand raised, unable to knock. About the fact that I'd just banished my own son from the home where he'd grown up. At 3 o'clock, Helen called. How are you holding up? I won, I said. So why does it feel like I lost? Because loving someone doesn't stop just because they betray you. That's the terrible part they don't tell you about standing your ground. Sometimes you have to stand alone. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table with my mother's old prayer book, the one I hadn't opened in years. Not for religion exactly, but for comfort. For the weight of something solid and lasting in my hands. The pages fell open to a passage marked with a ribbon. The righteous will flourish like a tree. They will still bear fruit in old age. Thought about that. Bearing fruit in old age. Not withering, not becoming useless, but continuing to grow and matter. That's what this week had been about. Proving I still had value, still had choices, still had the right to my own life. Saturday morning arrived with fresh snow. I woke early and made gingerbread cookies from scratch. Robert's favorite recipe. The cabin filled with sweetness and warmth, and for a few hours, I could pretend it was just another December morning at the lake. At 8 o'clock my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Mrs. Walsh, this is Special Agent Maria Santos with the FBI. My heart jumped. Agent Santos, I wasn't expecting. Your lawyer Thomas Green contacted our office about your situation. I've looked at the materials he sent over, including the recordings. Mrs. Walsh, I need to ask you some questions about Brian Walsh's business associates. We talked for 35 minutes. I told her everything I knew. The debt collectors, the threats against Emma, Brian's disappeared partner, the black truck that had visited the little house. She listened with the focused attention of someone building a case. Mrs. Walsh, what you're describing sounds like an organized lending operation that targets desperate people with predatory loans. We've been investigating similar activity in the Riverside area. Pause. I need to tell you that if your son and daughter-in-law cooperate with our investigation, we may be able to offer them protection. But they'll need to come forward voluntarily. Will they face charges? That depends on what they've done and how much they're willing to help us. But Mrs. Walsh, I want to be clear. This investigation is about the people running the operation, not the victims they've trapped. After we hung up, I sat with that information. Sandra and Brian were victims too, in their way. They'd made bad choices, yes, but they'd been hunted by people who specialized in exploiting desperation. The question was whether they'd be smart enough to accept help. I forwarded Santos's contact information to Brian's phone with a simple message. She can help. If you want to protect Emma, call her. Then I went outside to feed the birds at the feeder behind the cabin. The routine of it, scattering seed, filling water, checking for ice, grounded me. This was real. The cabin was real. My life continued regardless of the chaos Sandra had tried to create. I was filling the feeder when I heard a car in the driveway. I tensed, but it was only Thomas Green's car. He got out, bundled in a heavy coat, his breath fogging in the cold air. Mrs. Walsh, I have good news. Judge Patterson looked at the recordings and dismissed the control petition. Dr. Wilson has formally withdrawn his evaluation and is under investigation by the State Medical Board. And there's a restraining order in place. Sandra and Brian can't come within 300 feet of you or your property. That's good, I said, though the words felt hollow. There's more. David Preston called my office this morning. Apparently, Sandra had approached him claiming you'd asked her to review your legal papers because you were worried about your memory. He believed he was helping you by working with her. When he learned the truth, he was horrified. He's prepared to testify if needed, and he's offered to update your will at no charge. How generous of him, I said dryly. Thomas smiled slightly. He knows he made a serious error in judgment. But Mrs. Walsh, the important thing is that your rights are protected now. The court sees this for what it was, an attempted exploitation of an elderly person, not a worried family trying to help. After he left, I went back inside and called Timothy. It was time to deal with that particular betrayal. He answered on the second ring. Mom, I've been trying to call you, Sandra said. Timothy, I need you to stop talking and listen. I told him everything. Not the edited version Sandra had fed him, but the truth. The debt, the threats, the fake evidence, the conspiracy with Dr. Wilson. I told him about the recordings, the FBI investigation, the restraining order. When I finished, there was a long silence. I signed that paper, he said finally, his voice thick. I supported having you declared unable to think. Mom, I'm so sorry. Thought. Sandra said you were calling her by Aunt Betty's name. That you'd gotten lost driving to the store. None of it was true. She needed you to believe I was declining so she could build her case. I should have called you directly. I should have flown out there and seen for myself. He was crying now. I'm a terrible son. You're a son who believed his brother. That's not terrible. That's human. Decide. But Timothy, you need to understand something. When you're my age, the thing you fear most isn't death. It's losing control. Having people make decisions for you because they've decided you can't make them yourself. You trusted Sandra instead of me. And that hurt more than anything she tried to do to my property. No. I know, and I'm sorry. What can I do? Come visit. Not right now. Give me some time. But come in February. Actually see me, talk to me, know me. Don't just trust what someone else tells you about me. I will. Promise. After we hung up, I felt something loosen in my chest. Timothy had made a mistake, but he'd owned it. Unlike Sandra, who doubled down on manipulation until the very end. Sunday was Christmas Eve. I attended the service at the small church in town, sitting in the pew where Robert and I had sat for 25 years. Mrs. Peterson, the piano player, gave me a warm hug. So did the Hendersons and the Martins and half a dozen other neighbors. Word had gotten around, small towns being what they are, and the common opinion seemed to be that Sandra had always been a tricky one, and poor Margaret had been taken advantage of. I didn't correct them. Let them think what they wanted. I knew the truth was more complicated than victim and villain. But their kindness still warmed something in me that had gone cold. That evening, Helen came over with dinner. Roast beef, mashed potatoes, green beans. We ate at my kitchen table with candles burning and soft music playing. And for a little while, the cabin felt less empty. What will you do now? Helen asked over pumpkin pie. I don't know. Live my life, I suppose. Keep the cabin running. Maybe plant a bigger flower garden in the spring. And Sandra. I was quiet for a long moment. I hope she takes Agent Santos's offer. I hope she and Brian find a way through this that doesn't destroy them. But Helen, I can't save her from herself. I spent this week learning that lesson. Hard lesson for a mother. The hardest. On Christmas morning I woke alone. No Emma bouncing on my bed at dawn. No Sandra making coffee in my kitchen. No Brian attempting to put together some complicated toy while muttering under his breath. Cried then. Finally let myself feel the grief I'd been holding back. This was the price of standing my ground. Christmas alone. My family scattered. My son somewhere nursing his wife's hatred of me. But I didn't regret it. Couldn't. At 9 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't know. I almost didn't open it, expecting another threat. Instead, Grandma, it's Emma. I borrowed Mom's old phone. Miss you. Merry Christmas. Mom and Dad are talking to some FBI lady. Dad says maybe things will be okay. Hope so. I hope I can see you again. Love you. I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Then I wrote back, I love you too, sweetheart. More than you know. Tell your dad I'm proud of him for being brave. Merry Christmas. In the afternoon, I drove to Helen's for Christmas dinner with her family. Her grandchildren were noisy and chaotic and wonderful, filling the house with laughter and wrapping paper and the kind of joyful mess that comes from too many people in too small a space. They adopted me as an honorary grandmother for the day, and I helped Helen's daughter in the kitchen and listened to Helen's son explain his new job and felt part of something warm and alive. On the drive home I thought about family. Not the one you're born into, but the one you choose. The one that chooses you. Helen had stood by me when my own son had betrayed me. Emma had found a way to reach out despite everything. Even Timothy, flawed and foolish as he'd been, had apologized and promised to do better. Maybe that was enough. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed quietly. I changed my will officially, naming Timothy as executor and establishing a trust that would protect the cabin regardless of what happened to me. I updated my power of attorney documents, my healthcare directives, everything. Thomas Green's office handled it all with quiet efficiency. I also called a contractor about renovating the little house. New paint, new fixtures. Maybe rent it out to a young family who needed a place to start. Turn Sandra's space into something new and hopeful. On New Year's Eve, Agent Santos called again. Mrs. Walsh, I wanted to update you. Brian and Sandra Walsh have agreed to cooperate with our investigation. We're moving them into witness protection temporarily until we can take down this lending operation. Will they be safe? As safe as we can make them. And Mrs. Walsh, Brian asked me to tell you something. He said to say he's sorry, and that you were right about facing consequences. He said he hopes someday Emma can know her grandmother again. Someday, I repeated. That's all I can ask for. There's one more thing. We recovered your will from Dr. Wilson's office. He'd been holding it at Sandra's request. I'm having it delivered to your lawyer's office. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and watched the sun set over the cabin. The trees stretched out white and pristine under fresh snow. The garage solid and weathered. The house warm and secure around me. 70 years old. I'd survived a husband's death, raised 2 sons, run a cabin through good years and bad, and now I'd survived my own family's betrayal and lived to tell about it. The righteous will flourish like a tree. They will still bear fruit in old age. Maybe I wasn't done bearing fruit yet. January arrived with clear, cold days and brittle sunshine. I signed up for a class at the community college. Estate planning and elder law. If I could help even one other person recognize the warning signs of financial exploitation, maybe something good could come from this nightmare. Helen and I started a weekly coffee date at the cafe in town. Sometimes other women our age joined us. Widows and survivors. Women who'd outlived husbands and buried children and kept going anyway. We were tougher than anyone gave us credit for. Timothy called every Sunday, not out of obligation, but because he wanted to. We talked about everything and nothing. The weather, the news, his kids, my birds. Slowly, carefully, we rebuilt trust. In February, a letter arrived from Sandra. No return address. Forwarded through Agent Santos's office. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won. The letter was short. Margaret, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't forgive myself. You were right about everything. The desperation, the bad choices, the consequences. Brian and I are safe now, and Emma is adjusting. The FBI says we might be relocated permanently after the trial. I won't make excuses for what I tried to do to you. I was drowning, and I grabbed for the closest thing to save myself, and that thing was you. That's unforgivable. But I need you to know, when I stood at your door that last day with my hand raised, unable to knock, it wasn't because I hated you. It was because I finally understood what I'd become, and I couldn't face you. You taught me to be strong, to stand up for myself, to never let anyone make me small. And then I tried to make you small to save myself. The irony isn't lost on me. I hope someday, maybe years from now, you might let Emma know her grandmother. Not for my sake, for hers. She asks about you constantly. She says you're the strongest person she knows. She's right. I read the letter 3 times, then filed it away in my desk drawer. Not forgotten but set aside. Maybe someday I'd be ready to respond. Maybe not. For now, it was enough to know they were safe. Spring came early that year. By March, the cabin was waking up. Flowers pushing through snow, birds returning, the soil beginning to soften. I hired a young couple from town, the Johnsons, to rent the renovated little house. They had a baby and another on the way, and they looked at the house like it was a palace. "We'll take good care of it," Mrs. Johnson promised. "I know you will." On a warm April afternoon, I was working in my garden when Timothy's car pulled up the driveway. He'd driven from Florida with his family. His wife Anna and their 2 teenage daughters. They spilled out of the car with noise and luggage and teenage energy, and suddenly the cabin was full again. "Mom, where do you want us to put our bags? Can we see the bird feeder, Grandma?" "Mrs. Walsh, thank you so much for having us." I stood in my front yard, dirt under my fingernails, gray hair escaping from my ponytail, 70 years old and alive, and I smiled. "Welcome home," I said. That night, after dinner, Timothy and I sat on the porch while his family watched a movie inside. The spring frogs were singing in the lake, and the stars were impossibly bright. "Mom, I need to tell you something," Timothy said. "Anna and I have been talking. We're thinking about moving back to Oregon. The girls are almost done with high school, and I could work from home. We'd like to be closer to you. You don't have to do that. I know, but I want to. We want to. Not to take care of you. I know you don't need taking care of. but to be family. Real family, the way we should have been all along. I reached over and squeezed his hand. Like that. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars wheel overhead. Then Timothy said quietly, "Do you think you'll ever forgive Sandra?" Thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't know. Maybe forgiveness isn't the right word. Maybe it's more like understanding. She made terrible choices and she hurt me badly. But she's also living with the consequences of those choices. That's its own kind of justice. She's still your son's wife. Yes. And part of me will always care about her, even if I can't trust her. That's the complicated thing about family. Love doesn't just turn off because someone betrays you. I looked at him. But I also learned something important these past few months. Love doesn't mean sacrifice. It doesn't mean letting someone destroy you to save themselves. Sometimes love means standing your ground and saying no. That's hard wisdom. The best wisdom usually is. In May, I celebrated my 71st birthday with a house full of people. Timothy's family, Helen and her family, the Johnsons from the little house, neighbors from down the road, friends from church. We ate cake on the lawn, and the children ran through the trees, and someone set up a game, and it was chaotic and lovely. As the sun set and people began packing up to leave, I stood on my porch looking out over the cabin. The place that had almost been taken from me. The home I'd fought for. It wasn't just property. It was 38 years of memories. It was Robert's laugh and Brian's first steps and Timothy's graduation party. It was cold winters and hot summers and spring mud and autumn leaves. It was every decision I'd made, every challenge I'd overcome, every moment that had shaped me into who I was. The righteous will flourish like a tree. They will still bear fruit in old age. I'd borne fruit. I'd stood my ground. I'd proven that 70, now 71, wasn't the end of relevance or power or choice. Age hadn't diminished me. It had refined me, made me stronger, clearer, more certain of what mattered. And what mattered was this: living with dignity, standing with integrity, refusing to be small even when people tried to make you small. The cabin was mine. My life was mine. My choices were mine. And I intended to keep it that way for as long as I had breath in my body. Helen came up beside me on the porch. "Good party. Perfect party," I said. "You did it, you know. You won. We both won. We're still here. Still standing. Still relevant." I smiled at her. "Still bearing fruit." She laughed. "At our age, that's the best revenge." As the last guest drove away and the cabin settled into peaceful quiet, I went inside and made tea. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd planned my defense, where I'd faced down my fears, where I'd decided to fight. The house held me like an old friend. Outside, the spring darkness was soft with promise. New life stirring in the soil. Seeds planted that would bloom in their time. I was 71 years old, and my story was far from over. In fact, it felt like it was just beginning. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching Granny's Voice, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. Sure, it will surprise you.